If Nicky and Pierre get back together, they should at least tell us their rising signs. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I've been informed of their rising signs. Does that mean they're back together? I don't know! Let's talk about the astrology of Nicky and Pierre. Both men are Virgos, but I'm going to be talking about very specific placements for this video. Nicky is a Leo rising and Pierre is a Scorpio rising. How do I know? Nick told me himself! The rising sign in astrology represents the first 10 to 25 years of life, and it represents how you perceive the world and how the world perceives you. First up, we have Nick. Nick is a Leo rising. Leo is the sign of the performer, the entertainer, and the showcaser. It's also the sign of pride, self-love, self-indulgence, and it's the sign of ego. When you're a Leo rising, you perceive the world through your will. You may have had a childhood where you were really pining for other people's validation, or you had to spend a lot of time validating other people. Being Leo rising energy, these people have a natural star quality to them. They naturally attract people to them. But what they have to be careful about is people poisoning the well. Sometimes people can make you find validation in the wrong thing. I feel validated by my family's approval. I feel validated by social media comments. I feel validated by how much money I'm making. I feel validated by insert all these things here. I don't know Nick's life like that, but depending on how he grew up, depending on his experiences, he might have been taught at some point in time to chase after the wrong type of validation, and it really hurt him. Leo risings are also known for having unconventional relationships. They date people that either A, society says are unconventional, or B, people who are unconventional for that particular Leo rising. An example of this, Leo rising could have a history of dating athletes, people who are really into sports. Then all of a sudden one day they develop feelings for someone who is an English teacher, an English professor, a history nerd, an anime and comic book nerd. Well, first things first, it's a gay relationship. Society already says that's unconventional. Pierre is also over a decade older than Nick. Society also says that's unconventional. Also, Pierre is from France. Partner is from another country. When I say unconventional, I don't mean unconventional in a bad way. I just mean like it goes against certain norms that are set by you or society. For Leo risings, it's important that their partner feels like their best friend. Can they be friends with their partner? Can their partner be friends with their friends? Can they be friends with their partner's friends? Can you have community with your lover as a Leo rising? But Leo risings have to be careful because sometimes they can be so focused on how can we improve this? How can we make this better? They're so focused on innovating and upgrading and being revolutionary and being unique that sometimes they lose out on the bigger picture of the relationship. The big trauma for Nick as a Leo rising is his mental health, i.e. 8th house in Pisces. Fire sign risings are often the victims of emotional abuse and emotional manipulation, often having their own emotions weaponized against them or other people weaponizing their own emotions against them. Also, there's this weird trauma around potential. Sometimes people can get too focused on what Nick is about to do next, what he could do, what he might do. The next thing you know, he feels like he's a side character in somebody else's story that he didn't consent to be a part of, and God forbid he wants to step out on his own and form his own narrative. But this is where this can also be a power for him as well. It just depends on where he is in certain parts of his life. Now on to Pierre. Pierre is a Scorpio rising. Scorpio is the sign of death, rebirth, midlife crisis, trauma, evolution, transformation. It rules over how we invest in our deepest passions, and it's also the sign of ego death. With Scorpio being the sign of trauma, people with Scorpio risings can have really traumatic childhoods. Lots of secrets, lots of emotional manipulation, lots of power dynamic issues. Or, on the flip side, it could have been a rather peaceful childhood, a rather normal childhood. Pretty good, actually. But even though the childhood was good, you missed out on a lot of character development. And all those canon events ended up hitting you as an adult. Regardless of which type of childhood Pierre might have had, there is a lot of ego death in this man's life. Just when he thinks he knows who he is, something happens to make him question all the time, work, and energy he put into himself. And sometimes, as a result, he can have a jaded or cynical perspective of the world, or just a very passionate and deeply emotional perspective of the world. In relationships, Scorpio risings need a partner who represents their core values. A relationship for a Scorpio rising has to represent wealth, prosperity, abundance, the fruits of their labor. No Scorpio rising wants to be in a relationship where all that time and energy they put into gets undermined and it's all in vain. In being a fixed water sign rising, there has to be a certain structure in the relationship that is designed for the relationship to last long term. For Scorpio risings, they have to be very careful not to treat their relationships like a job. Your partner can't be your coworker. There needs to be human experiences. There needs to be humanity in the relationship. For Scorpio risings, the trauma is social development, how they talk to people, how they communicate with people, how they learn from people, how they try to match people's energies. They're often victimized by verbal abuse, people spreading rumors and just horrible narratives about them, people weaponizing their own intelligence against them. Scorpio risings are sometimes hesitant to show their true selves because they feel like they'll be ostracized or harassed or bullied for it. Not to mention, there's this constant questioning, who am I? What's the meaning of my life? What's the purpose of my life? Why am I here? But alas, the big power there is the social development. Pierre can be a little chameleon and adapt to any situation if he puts his mind to it. I don't know the exact degrees of their rising sign, but Leo rising and Scorpio rising form what is called a square between the sign of ego and ego death. The sign of ego death will literally try to kill the sign of ego. This is not me saying that Nick or Pierre are the bad guys in their relationships. No. But once again, their rising signs are squared energies. And when you have squared energies, it means you create restrictions and obstacles for each other, and you push each other to work hard to integrate their energies. Meaning these guys need to create a system, a plan, a structure, something that allows for their individual energies to shine as uniquely and as authentically as they are in ways that contribute to the stability of the relationship and don't end up destroying each other. Want to learn more about your zodiac sign? Sign up for a reading, link in my bio.